The city of Johannesburg is the host city for this year's C40 Cities Mayor Summit, which is taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre just north of Johannesburg. Now, one of the things that's very important in a big city such as Johannesburg is getting around, and transport is a big story here. To tell us a little bit more about that is the MMC for Transport in the city of Johannesburg, Christine Walters, and we'll get her thoughts on how that is affected by climate change. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, Peter.
So we're here at a summit all about climate change. You're the MMC for Transport. Do these two overlap? I was saying we're here to talk about climate change. You're the MMC for Transport. Do these two things overlap?
They do, and they interlock actually. So let me just give you some examples. The economy is driven by transport. The backbone of the economy is transport. And therefore you would find that any country, any province or any city would have their own integrated transport plan to make sure that that happens, because we deal with freight, we deal with people, and we deal with services. So how do we get these things moving around economies of scale, around time management, demand management? How do you make a city work optimally so that we can see the benefit of the movement of people, freight and services? So it does play a big role, and climate change does affect us. For example, we've seen over the festive season that we have had a number of floods. A number of our stormwater drainage couldn't cope with the amount of water that was falling. So therefore we were looking at the Mayor's 110 billion rand 10-year plan. And in this year, for example, JRA, Johannesburg Road Agency, who's responsible for the traffic lights and for the roads and paving and stormwater drainage, received 737 million in operation, as well as 737 million in capex alone. So we're very serious about what we're going to do around mitigating climate change. But the transport business cluster also has Metro Bus, which is the municipal bus, as well as the transport department, which manages the policy, regulation. We've just completed our integrated transport plan. And then if you remember that the MEC for Gauteng province also just passed this integrated master plan. And then we link ourselves to the National Department of Transport. So we look at things like the National Department's climate change white paper, and the city adopted a policy called the Climate Change Adaptation Plan, and we looked at vulnerable areas, assessments that we did. We looked at risk. So how does transport contribute? This year alone, we're spending 60 million on a 15K cycling and walking route for the students on our Empire Perth corridor. And in that corridor, we have all the media houses, national media houses. We have the SABC there, we have the universities there, we have the hospitals there, and then we have very low-income communities living and disadvantaged communities living together with very middle-class, upward-class community members. So the integration of the spatial design and changing the spatial design based on the corridors of freedom as the mayor has put forward.
One thing that you see in a lot of cities abroad are pavements. Is that something that we'll see more of to make it safer for people to walk, and also, I guess, to create a space for cyclists to get out of their cars and to get onto their bicycles?
Last year, November, the city passed a new policy called Complete Streets. Complete Streets is based on the fact that we receive in transport something close to 2,000 requests from communities per year on calming measures. And our philosophy is that we cannot re-engineer the city out of bad driver behavior. And we've seen a number of fatalities. You see rat racing of drivers, taxi drivers. The minute you put a traffic light up or you put a speed hump up, you'll find them going into the next street. And so we find that that is not a solution. That's not a sustainable solution. So in complete streets, we're basically saying that we want to see more cycling lanes, we want to see walking lanes, and then we've rolled out examples in Orlando West. Now we're doing about 5Ks, and then in that the student corridor, we're rolling out 60. We're in Calfontaine in Ivory Park. We're also doing bicycle lanes. The one thing the parents are raising with us that we're very concerned around the safety factor. So we do look at cycling and walking. We're very passionate about it. On the 9th of this month, which is Sunday, the mayor will be cycling with a number of stakeholders. They will be cycling the Heritage Trail in memory of Nelson Mandela. So they will be going from Nelson Mandela Bridge to Vilakazi Street to Nelson Mandela's home. We do have a number of cycling associations. We've seen shops coming up selling cycles. We want to look at the value chain and see whether we can't start some of these bicycle co-ops in some of the disadvantaged areas for unemployed people to come into the space.
One area that's perhaps will be challenging, we talk about emissions. A lot of the taxis that we see on our roads are not roadworthy and they are emitting all sorts of fumes. How do you manage that as a city? Because that can't be healthy for us.
We've got something like over 30,000 taxis just going through because there's also cross-boundary between municipalities. In Tshwane, the city of Tshwane, they've tested 380 taxis that are on low fuel, dual diesel fuel system. And in Ekurhuleni, they've got, city of Ekurhuleni has got 80 taxis. So we're basically saying South Africa, because the market basically says that we're not capable of turning it around. The technology, we don't have it, we can't produce it. Well, we do have evidence, and we can do the biodigesters, we can build it in South Africa, and we can operate it in South Africa. Yesterday we launched 2 buses, metro buses that were converted. 70% is compressed natural gas, and 30% is diesel. So yesterday we went to Soweto with the 1 bus, and the 1 bus went to Diepsloot. So it can be done. So we basically now have to go as government, go into partnership with the taxi industry and say, what is the value chain? And it can be the value chain for job creation. For example, the mayor said, if somebody must supply the stock for us and the stock for the fuel, can we have land that is identified for growing the grass? And Ekurhuleni has got a station that gives out compressed natural gas, so it does exist. We've got institutions in South Africa. The 2 buses that were converted was done by SANEDI, South African Institute, and we had the University of the Vaal Technology being partnership with us. So I think it can be done. We have to commit ourselves, and we need to get private business to come in, public partnerships. We need to have that. The Ria Vaya bus is one of the biggest initiatives to mitigate climate change. It's the cleanest vehicle on the continent at the moment, and we in phase 1A, which runs from Tokoza Park to Alice Park, we've got 144 buses. On the new route that we just launched, phase 1B, which is the Empire Route Road, we've got 134. We're now busy launching phase 1C, which goes down Louis Botha, Sandton, Alexander into Ivory Park, and we're going to have about 260 buses. The week before, we went out for a tender for Metro Bus, and we want 125 to 175 buses, dual diesel fuel buses.
So the map of the buses is changing quite rapidly. All right, MMC, we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us, particularly around climate change and your Department of Transport. Thank you for your thoughts.